GitOps is mature, but it's also still evolving.
Yep.
And yeah, there was a really nice link. I actually hadn't seen this, the GitOps principles link, and I don't know why I hadn't seen this, to be honest. So this is Open GitOps set of standards, best practices, and community. Yeah, just basically helping people adopt GitOps. So you can find the principles here. They're just really nice, straightforward. So we know what this first one is, declarative. So you need to be able to, you should be able to state what you want this future state of your system should look like, and the system should be able to get to that point itself. And it should be versioned and immutable. So the desired state is stored and protected in a way that it enforces immutability, and it should be pulled automatically. And the fourth point is also supporting the first one, continuously reconciled. So the drift between the desired state and the actual system state should always be followed and aligned by observing continuously. And there you are. I think this is yours, right? Oh.
Yeah, ArgoCon. That's happening if you're going to KubeCon. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Sorry, I thought it was GitOps Con somehow. Yeah. And so GitOps have reached 1.0. And there are still best practices emerging from the community. Do you want to say anything about, I don't know, what would change if you wrote this book 2 years from now on? Like, what do you foresee in the GitOps practices that would change?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think in terms of I'm looking at things that like Red Hat is doing. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of projects out there that are like into like declarative or immutable, right? So immutable operating systems, right? Things like this is really old, but like things like Firecracker, things like CoreOS, things like those type of technologies kind of initially started, right? Like OS tree and things like that, and are continuing to evolve. So I would really like to see like declarative operating systems. I think is going to be a big thing in terms of like moving GitOps beyond just like containers, because like that's kind of where it shines. The GitOps kind of just basically shines in Kubernetes because it was built on top of Kubernetes. Like the principles like Argo CD, Flux, everything was built on top of Kubernetes. So we have the advantages of having immutable infrastructure or immutable containers, right? Immutable things like that. But like extending that beyond that, at some point, someone needs to sit me down and explain to me like what the advantages of Talos is, because like I don't know, people for some reason love it, and I'm like, this looks like CoreOS to me. This looks like CoreOS to me. This looks like Firecracker. Like but
yeah,
I'm
I
looking
know
at
what you mean. Lots of similarities.
I'm looking at things like what Red Hat's doing with boot C. I think that's like kind of like a good like evolution of like immutable operating systems. So and of course like see how AI is going to change things up. I'm less I don't know, Raymond may have heard me yesterday during the Argo maintainers meeting. If he wasn't there, I said like I'm not a big fan of chatbots, because like Sevi, you would probably know more than anyone. It's like at 2 a.m. I get paged. Like I don't want to chat with an AI agent trying to make them understand the context of what. Like I need to know, right? So, but I think where AI kind of shines is gleaning and reviewing the logs and putting that front and center for you, right? Like letting them do that work. I don't know. I know a lot of VCs probably pour a ton of money into chatbots. That's fine. I don't think that's going to go anywhere, to be honest with you, other than Chat GPT or something like
It's
that.
super recognizable right now as well
Mhm.
by humans, and unfortunately, it lacks emotional
Yeah,
interaction. And the state
yeah,
of humans when they need help
yeah,
is much different than like a machine
y-
could respond to.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um,
I think things like agents like trying to like help you out. I think that
yeah,
that's pretty cool. I think really in terms of triage, in terms of GitOps and triage, like why a sync failed, right? And like it basically grabs it has the context of everything and grabs all the logs and kind of just puts you in a summary. I think that's very powerful. I think in terms of triage, I think AI is going to be a big into coming big in terms of DevOps, right? In
yeah.
terms of like actually infrastructure DevOps, in terms of like coding and stuff like that, yeah, like Claude, Sonnet, that's actually really cool. That's I think that's where chatbots kind of shine. But in terms of like it's 2 a.m. I just got paged, the system's down. Like I don't want to chat with anything. Like I need to get the system every second, right? That goes by, like the company's losing money.
Also,
I
for
felt that.
highly complex systems,
Yeah,
I see that is an amazing opportunity to make sense of different signals from across the systems, but
yeah,
also it is as hard as you can imagine. The number of systems you have makes it harder for an AI bot to make sense of things. So you really
yes,
need to invest in it, and the more systems you have on your path, it I think doubles or triples the complexity of
yeah.
that those signals to be interpreted in a meaningful way for you. I don't even sometimes understand how humans can achieve this, and like, how am I
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah,
tell
exactly.
this? How am I supposed to tell this to a machine to replicate this? But we're obviously getting there now.
Yeah,
Really, really nice tools. At least you have a clear scope of what systems you'll be watching, or like, for example, just Kubernetes, like uh, core DNS, or like kubelet, for example. Yeah, just you watch kubelet and make sense of kubelet events is even helpful. I don't know. You might be, as an application developer, you might not be seeing a node coming down because, yeah, you're just looking at your own Kubernetes logs, right? But if you have a system that explains this to you, yeah, the scope will increase and increase, and hopefully it's not going to get complicated and will be sensible to use. But yeah, I went and I was thinking, maybe it's a repository structure question.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get to that question there. And here we go. We cannot read a platform book without touching the Conway's Law. I love this stuff.
Yep.
uh, many
Yeah,
many
it's
moons ago, when I was in a architecture team, this was our little print next to on our door. Whoever entered our room read this first.
yeah.
So I think
Nice. I should
it
probably have it
made
like
things
back here or
into
something like that.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
why we
really
didn't have the
yeah.
t-shirts actually.
Yeah, it should. You know what? One like maybe I'll do it for Amsterdam. I'll have a shirt that is just Conway's Law, like just kind of, and
Oh my
like just like
god,
the
yeah.
way it's stated there. I mean, just I think that's great. And
Please, plus one.
yeah, and I mean it applies to so many things, and it definitely applies to like GitOps directory structure. I think now this conversation has settled a bit, but for a while there, everyone was like, well, what's the, like, how do I set up my GitOps directory structure? And I'm like, I can't tell you. I
Yeah.
can't, like, I know the way I would do it, but the way I would do it may not fit into your organization structure. Like if it doesn't match, like basically if it doesn't match how you guys communicate with each other internally, that get up that your that directory structure is not going to work for you, right? Like it's kind of like something has to change, either change how you're
Yeah.
your organization communicates or change your GitOps structure. But
Yeah,
it's like
when you
you
come
can't
across,
force one against the
yeah,
other. Yeah.
when you come across the word GitOps, you feel like, okay, I finally found the magic wand that's gonna solve my problems. But no tool or no, I think, framework is just solving organizational problems, and that's
Yeah.
what
Yeah. Exactly.
Melvin
Yeah.
Conway talks about here. An organization that designs a system and defined broadly will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. So
Yep.
that's why probably YouTube videos for setting up Argo CD repositories don't make sense to you sometimes. You're like,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
this was how I tried to start, and it didn't help that much. Oh, Matt,
Yeah.
your cat is
Oh,
super
Matt
cute.
has a cat. Yeah.
Ah, I'm jealous now. Okay. And exactly. So organizational boundaries and separation of responsibilities will have a large influence on your GitOps directory
Yep.
structure. But there are some nice approaches we might take. The dry approach, for example. Don't repeat yourself. But I really like the joke here. I don't know, maybe it wasn't a joke, but you
Yeah.
can take Y as YAML
Yeah.
here.
YAML, right? Don't repeat YAML, right?
Dryaml.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can store everything in Git, but it will be a repetition, and you will stop. I mean, it will stop making sense very quickly, and you will not know what to do, or like which one to use, or which one to change, and keep building on. And but you can actually use Customize and or Helm, because Argo CD both it supports both of them. To You can just store deltas, or the what's the word for this? The rendered ones as well. So
Yeah.
you can certainly build your way into it, and parameterize where you can.
Parameterize. Yeah. It's hard to
Yeah,
say.
and it's like a little test, and at this time of the day. And yeah, so try to yeah, for example, this was a good example. The host field in an ingress object, which specifies a fully qualified domain name, can be used to access an application available within the cluster. So you have a challenge that when you're deploying across a fleet of Kubernetes cluster, what do you do with those FQDNs, right?
Yeah.
Till deployment time, you wouldn't know. So parameterizing is a great plus, and Helm also is basically like great at it. So why not use them both? And then some questions I'm sure heard millions of times here. How many
Hmm.
repositories are needed? What do you do when you see this question?
So I always go, you're gonna need and this is like, I don't know if you've seen that meme where it's like it's like this guy in college, right? And he's holding this like coffee mug and it says change my mind, right?
Yeah,
So like when I get asked this question, honestly, like quote unquote, it depends, right? And there's a lot of like, what ifs. But for me,
absolutely.
like you're always gonna need at least two. You're gonna minimum always two, right? So the first one, I always say, you have a kind of like an operations repo, right? So this is
Yeah,
really, or control plane repo, right? This is kind of like what I use to manage the Kubernetes cluster and all like the add-ons, right? That into it, like, obviously where I'm gonna manage Argo CD itself, I'm gonna manage cert manager, I'm gonna manage Kyverno, I'm gonna manage like my gateway, right? Like all kind of like those kind of things, right? My network policies, like those kind of configurations, or what I call control plane, right? Like repo. And then you're gonna have whatever application that you're deploying on, you're going to have kind of like a separate kind of deployment repo for that. Raymond said, yeah, a repo per team is probably a good, way to like, each team is kind of responsible for like the YAML and, whatever that deploys their application that goes in a repo. And, and each team has that repo, right? But like you yourself control the deployment from the control plane repo, control the deployment and the versioning and whatever from that.
Well, what if you also need a specific feature on Kubernetes or Argo CD when you're deploying in a separate repository for your application?
So that's like kind of gets in you're in the realm of like kind of what Intuit does. Because what Intuit does, they have kind of like the control plane repo, but that's kind of like an operations repo. They have kind of like the application repo, kind of like the two, and then they kind of have like this third kind of, I want to call it like environment repo, or kind of like I don't know what you would call it, right? But like each cluster gets kind of a specific quote unquote standard build, right? Like they have a huge organization, right? Okay. So you kind of have like stuff for like, hey, this set of clusters needs, this version of this version of that. Like they kind of have like this third kind of separate. So, I like to do that in Customize itself, right? Like there's overlays, and then there's that second thing. I forgot what it's called. Components, right? So there's like overlays and components in Customize where you can do a lot of that. Like I typically keep that kind of stuff in a control plane repo, and if I can't fit it in one, like I just create another directory, and like that's your special, like I do Snowflake, kind of like quote unquote environments or overlays all the time, just because there's not that many, but you may have a need to like break that out, kind of like Intuit, right? They break out a lot of the stuff instead of having a components overlay.
There's also this mention that, usually companies start with a monolithic repository, but also there is this disadvantage that, Argo CD has a limit on the size of the repository. So when you have a large monorepo, you might, your Argo CD deployments will be probably slowing down because the keeping track of this huge repository would be harder, right?
I mean,
the pull repos, I see.
The initial and then there's two hands raised, so I want to get to those, but the initial kind of thought people get is like, oh hey, I'm gonna put this in a monorepo, which is actually fine. Actually, and I know a lot of organizations that do that. It's just that's starting point. It's hard to break out of once you start like growing, right? And then there's just like performance considerations and stuff specifically to Argo. That happens, and you need to tune it and stuff. It's not like it's just there's just considerations, right?
How do you tune it to? How do you tune it again? I remember hearing this somewhere else, but I can't
well, in the previous chapter we talked about like scaling, scaling and sharding and things like that. You have to do things like that. The repo server really is the first thing that kind of gets hit in terms of what do you call it, of performance, right? Like everyone say like, well, where do I start tuning? And it's like immediately I say that probably the first thing is the repo server is what you're going to be looking at, because it does a lot. So did you want to get to the questions? I know Samit.
Matt has his hand up, and then I'll check the chat. By the way, folks, I'm when I'm on my own, I sometimes find it hard to check the chat. Just please raise your hands and just pick up the mic.
Samit, you had your hand raised first. Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Wait, you're still muted if you haven't. No?
Oh, really?
Maybe no.
Maybe no. I'll read his.
Yeah. So Matt, go. Well, wait. Go ahead and go.
Oh, sorry. Hey guys.
Oh, yeah. Go.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I had a bit of a brain fart on how to do how to unmute. So,
It's
Mike,
we all
I
have.
don't know if it's a question. I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but one of the things we do when we do push-based GitOps currently. I haven't used Argo CD at all, and I've been trying to learn about it and doing stuff. But uh, what we do with the push-based GitOps is the way I've done it is we've set up a repo where we set up all our infrastructure stuff, like CloudFormation and everything. But we have branches instead of separating things just by repos. We have repos, but then we also have branches within the repos for each environment. So you can actually track different environment setups uh, in its
So
own
you have
branch and not have.
long-lived branches, right?
We have long-lived branches per environment, and what that allows me to do, well, long-lived depending on if they are temporary environments or if they are
Mhm.
permanent, more permanent environment. So, like if you create a feature environment, that's technically short-lived, but it stays for the duration of that feature. But basically, that's the approach I followed. Now, I wanted to see if I can marry that into Argo CD somehow, and I don't see why not. But I wanted to see if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Yes, and I actually talk about that later on in this chapter.
Oh, you do? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So in just a kind of uh, to answer your question shortly, and then we'll get to it later. Is as long as you're not using Git flow, I think branches per environment is fine.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't use
yeah,
Git.
yeah. So then
No, no,
in
no,
that
not for
it's
that. We use Gitflow for other stuff, but not for that.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. Yeah, but we'll get to that in a little later in the chapter. It's actually after this section.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that more in depth there. So, yeah. So, Matt, you had a question?
What I
No,
personally
go ahead.
found hard with branches was the basically switching back and forth, like having to do this. And then I think we had no.
It is if you tend to have the developers do the stuff. In our case, the developers don't actually do a lot of changes, and I mean they change the application, but they don't manage like the release and the versioning and all that stuff. We have Jenkins for
Yeah.
all that. So what we've done in the platform side, which is the team I'm on, is what I built is Jenkins takes care of promotions within environments as well. So like, you deploy to dev O1, let's say, and then you know the next environment is val O1. So Jenkins will automatically just create the PR for you. So you don't have to do anything, right? And that's the approach I've been trying to follow. And I think that's worked pretty well for, I want to say like close to a decade now for us. So
Cool.
anyway, but like Christian said, he's gonna cover it. But please go ahead, Sevi. I didn't
No,
mean
I
to
was
cut you
just
off, but
giving
I
the
just
mic to Matt actually for his question.
sure.
Thank you, Samit.
Hey, so I've got a few questions about scale. Sorry, how it apparently doesn't scale with monorepo. So I was wondering, like, specifically how that ends up being a problem. One question was like, is it? Sevi mentioned that there's a limit to repo size. Is that like the size of the whole repo as it clones it, or is it like a limit for the number of manifests that are in the repo once it's finished cloning it?
It's the size of the repo in terms of like memory and CPU usage, right? Because there's a single repo controller. And so if you have, I'm gonna like be ridiculous. If you have like 10,000 applications referencing that repo server, any one change to one application triggers a sync to all applications. So it's like so like you're not just updating one application, you're updating all of them technically in the eyes of Argo because it's the same repo. And doing a clone and a get ls remote and stuff like that, after a while, if you're working with really large repos, like shoving all that into memory is just becomes a bottleneck. And so there is some things around that. I think Raymond posted something about manifest generate paths. There's also sparse checkout, that a feature that is being worked on right now for Argo CD. So that that problem will get less and less and less as we go on. but it's really it has to do with it just has to do with we just have a single repo controller handling everything. And when I mean everything like Git, Helm, OCI, everything is handled by that one controller. So
so anything you can do to reduce the load on it, like whether
Yeah.
it's processing YAML or pulling data down from some other server in a Git operation, it's going to help.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that kind of
it-
answers my second
yeah.
question already too then, because I was also thinking like, as for a concrete example, maybe one way I could make it more efficient is to make sure I'm not storing the application YAML, like the deployments, in the same repo as the app source code, because then there'd be less for the controller to pull, right? The repo itself would just be so much smaller. It sounds like what you're saying is like, yeah, that's definitely going to help. It would help
Yeah.
to keep the manifests out of the source code repos. And maybe there's going to be features in the future to help with that, like the sparse checkout example you just mentioned. But it would still be best to just have that good practice in place where you're separating.
Yeah. Well, and it has also, well, one, for performance, you're gonna see that just by a byproduct, but also in terms of like a management, right? Depending on how large your organization is, it's just sometimes easier just to manage it like separately. So
because you could have different permissions on a Git repo if it's for deployments, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's different reasons to do it, but yeah, like it's like a whole thing.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have Andy as well in the room now. And
hey everyone.
Hello. I'm glad you didn't miss the last session.
I would not miss it for the world.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you. And we have some really nice directory structure resources, and some of them I actually thought why I didn't find these during my client work when I was trying to find out about Argo CD. And this one is from our dear Christian Hernandez. And let me just share my screen. So do you want to walk us through a little bit, Christian? I'm not going to go through all the links here, but maybe since you're in the room, do you want to just explain how we can extend this maybe, or like how we can start with this?
Yeah, this is kind of like the mono repo, kind of like how would I lay out the mono repo. Names aren't really important here. You can name it whatever you like. Really, it's like I have like how I'm bootstrapping my application. My cluster.
Yeah.
What different components am I managing from Argo CD, right? Like application sets, Argo CD project, right? Like projects, permissions, things like that, right? Like that's all kind of managed in this Git repo. I named this directory kind of core. It can be control plane, it could be operator, whatever, right? It's kind of like all the kind of the things like I was saying, kind of the configurations, the like cert manager would be there in there, Kyverno would be there, things like that. And then I have my tenants, right? So like I either have all my tenants in there in terms of like or teams, right? You can call them teams or whatever. Their deployments for their individual applications. You can reference external applications with customize if you want to do it that way. But this is kind of like a good kind of like if I want to start with a mono repo, this is how I would do it, right? And then the idea is having a single entry point. And the single entry point is the bootstrap directory, right? So like that that base and overlay basically references a ton of references like all the other YAML in this directory, right? So anything that you add here, it basically the bootstrap kind of quote unquote application kind of takes care of like deploying it, right? So you have a single like kind of deployment point, but then like various different directories that are laid out here. So all the other ones, I think if you go back that I reference, have similar structure and explanations. So like if you go, I think Gerald really has some. They have the Flux has a really good. I think I actually modeled my repo from like the Flux's repo, because I was doing a lot of stuff with Flux, and so I kind of just modeled my Argo repo to like match that, because like Flux has this bootstrap, has its own kind of like bootstrap subcommand, and I kind of just emulated that for my repo. I think it's a good kind of starting point.
I couldn't find the structure itself though. There are just readmes in here. But
I think I think Raymond posted some really good. Kosis has a lot of great content around repo structures, application sets. So like kind of like focal. Mine and I think Gerald is kind of like generic, kind of like this is what you need to kind of look out for. Kosis goes really, really deep in his examples.
And there's one we know of, GitOps Bridge, who are dear Carlos Santana is a major contributor of, and now he's started questioning why he called this bridge. I don't know why either. It made sense at the time though, because it kind of gets all the bits and pieces together. But yeah.
Well, because he was doing a lot with Terraform at the time. So like it basically Terraform to bring things up, and then
Argo
deploy
CD
the things.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I need this little mid kind of section to bridge both those things. So that that's kind of what because Terraform knows a lot about the infrastructure. Yeah. Terraform knows a lot about the infrastructure, right? And GitOps is really more on the application deployment side, but they still need to work together, right? So I think that
I hate that it's unreadable on my screen, but here we go. Yes, and then we have the rendered manifests pattern, which now when you read it, it looks so much sense. I'm thinking like,
so the rendered manifest pattern is one that I highly recommend in some of the newer workflows, especially if you're using the new capability of OCI artifacts. To be able to store content, because that aligns very well with that paradigm, because in the end you mainly are going to most likely have to create a set of curated content for what you package into your OCI artifact, and this pattern kind of emulates that process exactly.
Also there's this one example about the pure rendered manifest pattern, and then we have the rendered in CI and stored on branches one, right? So this was really powerful, this example. So when you just do a diff here, you just see, okay, there's going to be a major version change, but if you just
what does that mean?
Like if you look into the change, actually, I'm not going to stop and show you everything that change might do to your system. It goes on and on. So that diff is actually this. So and if we go to the rendered manifests workflow, so you push a change to your main branch, and the CI engine is triggered, and Helm and Customize creates your renders your YAML, and then it's being pushed to an environment specific branch. And then Argo detects this change and then reconciles with the cluster and applies all the manifests basically. Any notes on this? By the way, I'm aware that we have 10 minutes left, so maybe after this we can just jump on whatever you would like to focus on.
Just because this has to do with I forgot whoever asked Samit asked the question, is that this is kind of like the pattern in terms of like have deployment environment specific branches or deployment specific branches, like however you want to do it. So you're still, this is the thing, you're still using a trunk based workflow, and you're still working like with Customize and Helm. Like that doesn't change, right? Like you're still storing things in environment specific folders. You're using overlays, bases overlay, like all that stuff, like from GitOps that you've been probably Googling and you're seeing, all that still applies. It's just the payload then becomes kind of like an artifact. Like think of it as so these branches don't think of them as Git branches. Like they're Git branches because like that's what they are, but like conceptually think about them as like a payload, right? Like your actual kind of artifact that you're using to deploy, right? These are kind of like you never you always delete and recreate, right? Like you never like merge them together. Like you never like go from like merge dev to staging, right? Like you work on your main branch, you make the change there, then your CI system then basically cleans that directory, cleans that branch out, renders it into that branch, and then commits it. And then Argo sees that update and then starts deploying it. So, and this is actually the pattern that I follow. And kind of like for those who are going to ArgoCon, KubeCon sneak peek, and Andy just kind of mentioned it too. It's like, well, now I'm kind of using OCI, right, instead of environment specific branches. There's pros and cons to it. If you really want me to talk about it, or you probably have to wait until after my talk when the video is up about the pros and cons to storing them in OCI. But I'm starting to store them in OCI and treating them as a true artifact, right? Like an actual kind of like a container image, right? You're treating them as like kind of like that immutable artifact versus a branch, right? Branch, you can put branch protection rules and all this like that. It's still a very much, where you store them doesn't necessarily matter, quote unquote. It's the practice of like rendering them in CI and seeing the true desired state is what I like to call it, true desired state into a branch. Right?
Looking forward to your talk then to be uploaded. And Samit has his hand up.
Yeah, so actually, I'm glad you mentioned the OCI thing. I mean, I wasn't thinking OCI. I was just thinking Docker and containers, because what I was before the shutdown thing happened. I work in the government. One of the things I was working on is actually taking all these settings and everything that they do. Once you commit it, I wanted the CI to actually build a container image with everything in it and commit it as a version, so that you can actually deploy that particular version of that particular environment from an infrastructure perspective anytime you want it.
And we see similar.
I don't know if that's what you're mentioning or not.
So we see similar patterns of packaging environments, like in the AI space, putting models in containers. But this isn't necessarily putting it like as a runnable container. This is going to be putting it as an OCI artifact. An artifact is just going to contain a set of resources. And all Argo does is treat that resource like any other Git source or Helm source.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this is the best part about that, is because it's very pluggable, because you can put any type of content you want in there, as long as Argo can understand it, i.e. be one of the input types, whether it be a Helm chart, whether it be a directory structure, whether it be customized. You don't have to do anything else. That's the best part about this. That's why I'm so bullish about the OCI, is because there are a lot of benefits. There are some trade-offs. I will admit there's a number of trade-offs from the Git-based source that we have today, but I still see OCI as being the path forward for being able to really manage GitOps at scale. And especially since, Samit, you mentioned you worked in government, there are many of my customers who don't allow Git inside certain environments, but they usually will have an OCI artifact registry available. That eliminates another concern that they have.
And it's really not. I mean, we do allow Git, but you can't. We don't allow Git in production, per se.
Exactly, and that's the thing.
Yeah. So that's kind of why I was going that route of container. But I can. But once I read your books, I'll look forward to the talk and see how to use the OCI thing, because that is very interesting approach.
Are you going to be a KubeCon?
I unfortunately cannot.
Well, the best part is we can continue collaborating on Slack, and happy to answer any questions that you have afterwards.
Yes, just hit up Kubernetes Book Club or just DM Andrew if he's up for it.
I'm always up for it, but
book discussions or like book-related discussions, it's nice also if other people see it as well.
I was also going to suggest either the Argo CD channel, or others who are just interested in Argo CD.
Yeah, that's also true.
This is where, Argo CD, where is the channel? I'm sorry, I'm trying.
On the
It's in-
CNCF Slack.
in the
Yeah.
CNCF Slack.
It's Argo-CD.
Oh, okay. Let
Are
me-
you on CNCF Slack, Samrit?
I have to check.
Actually, now we're coming to the interacting with the community chapter. That was a perfect
Okay,
question.
perfect. I will shut up then, and I'll just follow.
You will be able to find. I'm going to find the links in here in the chat. So this is the community Slack, and I think CNCF Slack is just this, right? Slack.cncf.io.
Yes.
Yeah. So the channels you would need, or Argo
Yeah,
CD?
I'm on the Kubernetes Slack, but not on the CNCF one.
Yeah. You can use it for the book club. It's more like community stuff you're using for. I put Argo CD here as well, but I don't know if yes, I knew I made a mistake. Thank you, Christian. Yeah. So yeah, before we wrap up, let's also discuss how people would need, or why people would need community interaction, and like how it's going to help them during GitOps keeps evolving. Please lead us, Christian, Andrew.
Yeah, there's always use cases that are coming up that either like the community like has never like thought of or like run into, right? Because Argo CD, like Argo project, was created in Intuit for their use cases, right? And it's evolved as more and more people use it, just like any open source project, right? Like it's one of those, like never thought people would want to use Argo CD for this, but okay, here we are. Like there's it continues to evolve because of the use cases that people bring. So a lot of features have been put in, because of like use cases and community demand. Like OCI support, for example, is something that Andrew, myself, Acuity, Microsoft, Intuit worked on together because both Acuity and Red Hat's customers had a need for it. And so it's just as simple as that, right? Like as simple as like getting involved in terms of like, hey, I my company really needs this feature. If sometimes you feel like you're in an echo chamber, you're like, oh, maybe like I'm just a snowflake and I need to work around it. But then sometimes you get like 800 more people saying, yeah, I would like that too. Like that would be nice, right? Like so it's always it's always a mixed bag, but it's always getting involved in terms of like use cases and things like that. If you are an engineer, definitely could use help always, right? I always say you don't need to be a coder to be part of the community, but if you know how to and you can spare cycles, there's always a need for people like to work on bugs and security fixes, feature requests. Right now, I think the pull request to issue ratio on Argo, I think is 3-to-1 or something like that. So it's like we really need some people that know how to code, but still, like everyone's welcome for sure.
I have 2 questions related to this. I'm not going to take too long though. Like, how do you see Argo community state right now? Like, is it growing, or like how do you understand it's stable enough and you have healthy maintainer cycle?
Go ahead, Christian.
I said Argo project is the 3rd largest project in the CNCF, right? So behind Kubernetes and OpenTelemetry. So that's like actually kind of humbling. It's actually the 4th largest in the Linux Foundation in general. So it has a large community and a large user base. It's very extremely popular. It's become really kind of like the de facto things you install on a Kubernetes cluster, right? When you think about a Kubernetes cluster, like I'm gonna need Ingress, I'm gonna need something like Carverno, OPA, and I'm gonna need something like Argo. Like it's just become.
What I want to emphasize is that Argo, the project, is big. Everyone thinks of Argo as Argo CD, but it's much more than that. It's Argo workflows, it's Argo, etc.
There was mention of this here somewhere here. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I definitely, when you hear the word Argo, everyone thinks Argo CD is much more than just that. And I find the Argo CD community in terms of the project is very mature. But the great part about that is it is evolving forward. It's not stagnant. We look at some of the newer features around the Argo agent. We look at other features around how we're increasing the new features of the platform and the product. That's what's exciting about it. It's not something that's kind of sitting by itself and just kind of sitting there but working. It's continuing to evolve forward, and that's thanks to the community.
Yeah. As Argo project is graduated, which is considered as stable and can be suggested for successful production usage. I have another question, then I'm going to turn to you guys to wrap up because it's an emotional state for me right now to say goodbye to you after 12 weeks. Maybe more than 12 weeks. We had some cancellations in between. How do open source maintainers create a balance between feature requests? It could be a very, requested big feature, and it might not be actually fitting how you see this product to take shape. Like, GitOps has certain fundamentals, right? Maybe it's something not supporting that fundamental. How does it happen, this balance in an open source project?
I don't know. Andrew can probably talk about more like Helm and other kind of open source projects, because they every community works different.
Yeah, like 800 people are asking the same thing, but it's not actually what you should do.
What I'm saying is each community treats feature requests differently. I know in the Argo project, it really comes down to it's easy to write a feature, but it's not easy to maintain it, right? And so like if someone writes a feature and then because their company needs it and then they go away, all of a sudden there's this code base that's in the project that really no one's maintaining. So it really has to do with like the usability of that feature for other organizations, right? So I can't speak on much other projects, but like if a feature is going to be used by Intuit, there's a really, really, really high chance it's going to get written because not because it's hard to write a feature, it's hard to maintain it. And when I say hard, I mean like hard in terms of like energy, people, process, bandwidth, like budgets. Like it's like when a feature comes in and like reaches kind of like a state. So that's kind of one. It's like we have to balance out like, okay, well, like who's gonna maintain it? It might be a great idea. It might be a usable idea. That's like really like, but that's like, those are things are easy to get, right? Like, yeah, this feature is useful, like, but like that's not like the only criteria, right? Like there's a large criteria. So my question always is like when someone like requests a feature, it's like, okay, well then who's gonna maintain it? Like if it's just gonna like be you and your team and your company, like I don't I typically don't like that. If like there's a consensus, right? Like in I don't want to I don't want to like use my feature as like the golden child, but hey, it's my book. So like the OCI feature, right? That is something that like Intuit, Acuity, Red Hat, Microsoft wanted and their customers wanted, and like that's going to be maintained. So it was done, right? Like it was, like it was done only because like if there's an issue down the line, someone from one of those companies, right, especially like from Red Hat, right, like if there's a customer issue, they have like a long support cycle. So if there's like an issue, it's going to get fixed, right? And so that's today on the Argo project maintainers meeting. Michael Crenshaw is like said it I think perfectly. Like it's a vibe check, and I don't know how to document that, but it but like the Argo CD project lead said, like, because someone it's like we're moving something from alpha to beta, and they're like, well, what's the process? And he's like, honestly, it's a vibe check. And really, cool. Like I can't really explain it any better than that, right? Like if the vibe check,
I don't like me asking, like, I wasn't asking a formal process or anything anyway, and I would hate it for an open source project because it just kills creativity and any innovation might happen when you just put a process in front of, okay, what feature are we building? But there always is a balance, right? And folks, please do ask your questions. If you don't do it now, you'll have to do it on Slack in written format or in KubeCon Atlanta, which I think will be very exciting for people who can get to the Acuity booth. We'll be posting this on LinkedIn as well, so that, you know, our attendees see it. If you guys have any questions, please do ask, or otherwise I'm going to say goodbye to Christian and Andrew, and thank you again.
It's been a pleasure the last several months. Debbie, Carlos,
over 3 months actually.
Almost 3 months.
Almost 3 months,
but we did it. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you for helping us do this. I'm going to thank also on behalf of Carlos. It's always really hard to commit to a long book like this. We really understand you have a lot going on your hand already, but you kept showing up, which was amazing. And we had such lovely conversations about anything Argo CD. I'm not an Argo CD expert. I learned a lot. And I'm sure our attendees, readers did as well. And you can't imagine how grateful I am for this, like 3.5 months. Seriously, I shared some stats before you joined, Andrew. It was July 24th we started this.
Wow.
So long journey, and I have to say goodbye now, but we'll be in touch.
Thanks everyone for this. It's been fun.